The Now Habit, a strategic program for overcoming procrastination and enjoying guilt-free play, by Fiore. Introduction. I want to tell you a story. Imagine you're out on the water, learning to sail for the very first time. The wind is picking up, the boat starts to lean, and then it leans too far. Water is rushing over the side, the sail is flapping wildly, and your heart is pounding in your chest. You're in the middle of a small emergency. Your instructor, the expert, leans over and asks you a question. What do you think he asks? Maybe, what should we do? Or let go of that rope? No. He looks at you, calm as can be, and says, "Why are you doing that?" Now, think about that. In a moment of crisis, when every second counts, he's asking for a deep psychological analysis of your mistake. If you took the time to answer him, to figure out why you were holding the rudder wrong, you'd both be underwater. This is exactly what happened to a young Fiore, the author of the book we're exploring today. And in that moment, he learned a lesson more profound than any sailing technique. He realized that asking why during a crisis is one of the most useless things you can do. The only question that matters is, what's the corrective action? How do we fix this, right now? He pushed the rudder the other way, released the sail, and the boat righted itself. He taught himself what his coach could not. That simple story holds the key to unlocking a level of productivity and peace of mind that most people only dream of. We spend so much of our lives asking ourselves, why did I do that? Why do I always procrastinate? What's wrong with me? We psychoanalyze ourselves while the boat is taking on water. What if there was a better way? Today, we're diving into The Now Habit at Work by Drive. Fiore. This isn't just another book about to-do lists and time management hacks. This is a manual for rewiring your brain. It's about understanding the deep, hidden forces that make us put things off, get overwhelmed, and fall into the trap of working harder, not smarter. By the end of our time together, you're going to understand the secret language your mind uses to sabotage you. More importantly, you'll learn the new language that peak performers use to turn stress into focus, anxiety into action, and overwhelming projects into simple, manageable steps. This isn't about becoming a machine. It's about becoming more human, more creative, and finally freeing yourself to do your best work without the guilt and the grind. Book summary. Let's begin with a feeling we all know far too well. It's that sense of dread when you look at a huge project. Your mind instantly jumps to the finish line, to the mountain of work that stands between you and being done. And what happens? You feel overwhelmed. Your energy gets stuck. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. This feeling, this paralysis, is the starting point for so much of our struggle with work. Drive. Fiore gives us a brilliant analogy for this. He hands out one of those little straw finger puzzles, the kind you stick your index fingers into from either end. What's the first thing everyone does? They pull. They struggle. And the harder they pull, the tighter the trap gets. They're stuck. This, he says, is how most of us approach our work and our problems. When we feel stuck, our instinct is to struggle harder, to apply more force, more willpower, more stress. But the solution to the finger puzzle isn't to pull harder. It's to do the opposite. You have to gently push your fingers inward. The trap loosens, and you're free. He calls this the law of reverse effort. Life, like that finger puzzle, has hinged its doors to open easily. If you're pushing with all your might and the door isn't opening, it's probably a pull door. The struggle itself is a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. So, what is the pushing we do every day? It's the language we use with ourselves. Think about the words that run through your head when you face a difficult task. For most of us, it sounds something like this: I have to finish this report. I should have started earlier. I must get this done perfectly. Let's break that down. When you tell yourself, I have to, what are you really saying? You're saying, I don't want to do this, but some external force is making me. You've instantly created a conflict inside your own mind. There's the part of you that's the taskmaster, and the part of you that's the rebellious child who wants to resist. And so, you procrastinate. You check your email, you grab a snack, you do anything else, because you're subconsciously fighting the tyrant in your own head. Drive. Fiore argues that the single most powerful shift you can make is to change your language from I have to I choose to. This sounds simple, almost too simple. But the effect is profound. When you say, I choose to start on this report for 15 minutes, you've done something revolutionary. You've taken back control. You are no longer a victim of your to-do list. You are the one in charge. There is no rebellion, because there is no tyrant. There is only a choice. Even for things you truly don't want to do, like paying taxes or getting a root canal, you can still choose. You are choosing to pay your taxes because you prefer that to the consequences of not paying them. You are choosing to get the root canal because you prefer that to the pain of an infected tooth. By framing it as a choice, you align all your internal energy in one direction. The struggle stops. This leads us to the second pillar of the now habit, shifting your focus from the overwhelming idea of finishing to the simple, concrete act of starting. Our brains aren't designed to process a 1,500-hour project all at once. When you tell yourself, I have to write this entire book, your brain goes into panic mode. It's trying to calculate every step, every chapter, every sentence simultaneously. The result is anxiety, that feeling of stuck energy. Why? Because the finish line is in the imaginary future, a place your body can't get to right now. The antidote is breathtakingly simple. I will start for 15 minutes. That's it. That's the magic formula. You don't promise to finish. You don't even promise to do good work. You just promise to start. Anyone can handle 15 minutes. It's less time than scrolling through social media. But in those 15 minutes, something incredible happens. First, you break through inertia. An object at rest stays at rest, and that's true for us too. Just getting started is often the hardest part. A 15-minute start is what drive. Fiore calls a procrastination inoculation shot. It gets you moving. Second, you begin to feed your brain information. You can't solve a problem you haven't engaged with. Within just a few minutes of working on something, you know more about it than you did when you were just worrying about it. The path forward starts to become clearer. And third, you activate a part of your mind that drive. Fiore calls your subconscious genius or your night shift mind. This is one of the most exciting ideas in the book. He tells us that our conscious mind, the part of us that struggles and worries, is only a small fraction of our total brain power. We have a vast, powerful subconscious that is brilliant at solving problems, but it only works when we give it something to chew on and then let it go. He shares his own experience of writing his doctoral dissertation. He was working a 40-hour-a-week job and could only spare about 15 hours a week for his research. How did he do it in just 1 year? He never told himself, you have to finish this dissertation. Instead, he would simply choose to work for 15 or 30 minutes before breakfast. He would just seed his mind with the problem of the day. Then, he would go to work. While he was busy with his job, his subconscious night shift would be working on the problem in the background. Often, the solution would just pop into his head while he was in the shower or driving home. He learned to trust this other part of himself, to delegate the heavy lifting to his little gray cells, as the detective Hercule Poirot would say. He gives us a wonderful physical exercise to feel the difference. Hold a book out in front of you with your arm fully extended. Imagine this is your conscious mind, trying to handle a project all on its own. It's separate, strained, and it gets tired very quickly. Soon, it's looking for any excuse to take a break. Now, bring your elbow down to your side, so your arm is supported by your body. The book is just as heavy, but it feels effortless to hold. This is what it's like to work with your whole brain, connected to all your resources. You stop the lonely, arrogant struggle of the conscious mind and allow your entire self to support the work. This leads to another crucial shift, moving from ego focus to task focus. When we procrastinate or feel anxious about work, what are we really thinking about? Usually, it's about ourselves. What if I fail? What will they think of me? I'm not smart enough for this. This is ego focus. You're not thinking about the task, you're thinking about the perceived threat to your sense of self. Drive. Fiore suggests we categorize our thoughts into two boxes. Box 1 is for ego thoughts, worries about the past, fears about the future, and self-criticism. Box 2 is for task thoughts. What's the next step? What do I know about this problem right now? How can I clean up this spilled milk? Peak performers, whether they're athletes or executives, have trained themselves to shift from box 1 to box 2 in a single breath. The moment they notice a self-critical thought, they link it to a corrective action. They don't waste time analyzing the thought, they just pivot back to the task at hand. This rapid shift not only makes them more productive but also reduces feelings of depression and anxiety, because they're releasing that pent-up worry into effective action. A powerful story from the book illustrates this perfectly. It's about a woman named Ellen, a photographer who, at her day job, was locked in a bitter conflict with her boss. He refused to promote her, and she had grown angry and resentful, starting to procrastinate and show up late. She was stuck in ego focus, consumed by the injustice of it all. One weekend, she was out taking pictures and saw a young man with a motorcycle who looked like a perfect subject. She asked if she could take his photo. In response, he snapped open a switchblade and held it to her face, snarling, "Is this what you want to see, lady?" What would most of us do? We'd be terrified. Our ego would scream, "Danger!" But Ellen was so focused on her goal, getting a great picture, that she didn't even feel fear. She was in pure task focus. She reached out, gently took the hand holding the knife, and said, "Yes, would you tilt it like this so it reflects the sun?" The young man was so taken aback, he complied. He posed for half a dozen photos. When Ellen reflected on this, she had a breakthrough. With the biker, she had refused to be defined as the enemy. She had focused so intently on her goal that he was compelled to cooperate. She realized she could do the same thing with her boss. Instead of seeing him as an obstacle and shooting daggers at him with her eyes, she could focus on her goal, becoming a supervisor. The next day, she walked in and, instead of glaring, she simply smiled and said, "Good morning." Her boss was stunned. The tug-of-war she'd been playing requires two people to pull. She had just dropped the rope. Within 3 months of shifting her focus from the conflict to her goal, she became the first female supervisor in her department. That is the power of focusing on the task, not the ego. To build this kind of focus and motivation, we need a compelling vision, a mission that pulls us forward. This isn't just a vague wish, it's a clear, magnetic picture of our desired future. Drive. Fiore suggests a powerful exercise called the Ghost of Christmas Future. First, you imagine your life 5 years from now if nothing changes. You're still in the same job, facing the same problems, with the same unfulfilled dreams, only you're 5 years older. You let yourself feel the weight of that stagnation. What absolutely must change? That feeling of pain can be a powerful motivator. But then, you do the second part. You imagine your life 5 years from now having made marvelous, positive changes. You've achieved your most important goals. You feel fulfilled, healthy, and happy. You look back from that ideal future and see the steps you took to get there. What was the very first small step you took, 5 years ago, that set this incredible journey in motion? This exercise connects you to the 3 great motivators: the avoidance of pain, the power of positive expectancy, and the feeling of ownership over your life. The power of expectancy is beautifully illustrated by another story in the book. A sales manager named Joe arrived at his office building one morning and, in the elevator, met a man who, out of the blue, wanted to buy a $5 million insurance policy. Joe was thrilled, but he realized he had a golden opportunity. He went into his weekly sales meeting and announced to his team, "There is someone in this building who will buy a $5 million policy today." He didn't say who or where. In seconds, the room emptied as 12 salespeople fanned out across the 18 floors, filled with the expectation of a huge sale. By the end of the day, they hadn't found Joe's original client, but they had made a record number of sales. One person even sold a different $5 million policy. Because they expected success to be right around the corner, they were more persistent, more confident, and more alert to opportunities. They created the reality they were primed to see. Now, all of these strategies are essential for managing ourselves. But what about managing others, especially those who procrastinate or are difficult? Drive. Fiore points out that we often make procrastination in others worse by using the very same flawed language we use on ourselves. When we tell a procrastinating employee, "You have to get this finished," we're just reinforcing the dynamic of the tyrant and the rebel. We're triggering their resistance. An effective manager does something different. They help the employee shift their own internal language. Instead of asking about the finish line, they ask, "When can you start on a rough draft?" Notice the brilliance of this question. One forces them to pick a specific time, moving from a vague intention to a concrete plan. Start moves the focus from the overwhelming endpoint to a simple first step. And rough draft gives them permission to be imperfect, which diffuses the fear of criticism that drives so much procrastination. For a true procrastinator, you might have to ask 4 or 5 times before they give you a real answer like, "At 2:15 today," because they aren't used to thinking in such concrete terms. You're not micromanaging them, you're teaching them how to become a more effective self-manager. When it comes to difficult employees, the ones who seem to challenge authority and have a chip on their shoulder, drive. Fiore offers a perspective born from his own life. He grew up in a tough blue-collar neighborhood. He worked long hours while his friends were out having fun. He admits that on his early jobs, he was the difficult employee. Later, as a psychologist, he was hired to administer tests to prison inmates. He saw that the toughest, loudest ringleaders in a group setting were often the same men who, in a one-on-one session, would tearfully admit they couldn't read and ask for help. Their aggression was a mask, a defense against a lifetime of feeling inadequate and ashamed. This doesn't mean we excuse bad behavior. But it does mean we can be more effective when we look past the behavior to the underlying need. Often, the most difficult people are seeking respect. They feel they've been treated unfairly, and they're acting out as a clumsy, counterproductive attempt to gain some sense of power and dignity. The key, then, is to treat all employees with respect, but to be especially mindful with those who are sensitive to criticism. You create a safe environment where they can focus on the job, not on defending their worth. You give them choices instead of orders. And, crucially, you catch them doing something right. As management expert Ken Blanchard said, people are most receptive to learning and most motivated to improve when they are recognized for what they're doing well. Positive reinforcement is always more powerful than negative attention. Ultimately, all of these strategies, for ourselves and for others, are about building resilience. Life will throw you curveballs. You will have setbacks. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to get good at recovering quickly. Drive. Fiore suggests we should plan for setbacks and rehearse our recovery. Tightrope walkers don't just practice walking the rope, they practice what to do when they start to fall. Sometimes, the balancing pole that usually saves them is the very thing that will pull them down. In those moments, they have a plan B. They've practiced dropping the pole and grabbing the wire. We need a plan B for our bad habits. When you feel that old, familiar urge to procrastinate, to get angry, or to eat that junk food, that's your signal. That's the moment the breeze hits the tightrope walker. Your old habit, your balancing pole, is to give in. Your new plan B is to pause, take 3 deep breaths, just 15 seconds, and choose a different action. You choose to start for 5 minutes. You choose to walk away from the argument. You choose a glass of water instead of the cookie. Each time you do this, you weaken the old neural pathway in your brain and strengthen the new one. You're not just resisting a habit, you're building a new, more effective identity. You are becoming the kind of person who faces challenges with calm, focused action. And that, in the end, is the real promise of the now habit at work. It's not about doing more things. It's about becoming more of who you are meant to be. It's about dropping the struggle, letting go of the self-criticism, and discovering the profound ease and power that comes from living in the now, making one conscious choice at a time. It's about learning to work with your whole self, and in doing so, finally unleashing your true potential. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through the now habit at work, I want to take a moment to reflect on what makes this book so enduringly powerful. In a world that is constantly screaming at us to go faster, do more, and optimize every second, Neil Fiore's message is a quiet, radical act of sanity. He's telling us to slow down, to listen to ourselves, and to be kinder. The most profound lesson, for me, is the realization that the biggest obstacle to our productivity isn't a lack of time or a difficult boss. It's the conversation we're having inside our own heads. The constant pressure of I have to, the sting of I should, and the fear behind what if create a state of internal civil war. We are so busy fighting ourselves that we have no energy left for the actual work. Fiore's genius is in showing us that we can declare a truce. We can change the language. The shift from I have to finish to I choose to start for 15 minutes is more than a productivity trick. It's a shift from being a victim to being a leader. It's a reclamation of your own agency, your own power. It reminds me that every great journey, every monumental achievement in human history, did not happen all at once. It happened with a single chosen first step. The other idea that truly resonates is that of the subconscious genius. We live in a culture that worships the hustle, the grind, the conscious effort. We believe that if we just think harder and struggle more, we'll find the answer. Fiore invites us to trust a deeper, wiser part of ourselves. To give it the problem, and then have the faith to let go, to take a walk, get a good night's sleep, or work on something else. This isn't laziness. It's a higher form of efficiency. It's understanding that our best ideas often come when we stop forcing them. So how can you put this into practice today? Let me offer 3 simple actions. First, for the next 24 hours, become a detective of your own thoughts. Every time you catch yourself thinking or saying the words I have to, just pause. Gently, without judgment, rephrase it as I choose to. Notice how that small change feels in your body. Notice how it shifts your energy. Second, pick one task, just one, that you've been putting off. It could be a piece of homework, a difficult email, or cleaning your room. Now, set a timer for 15 minutes. And just start. You don't have to finish it. You don't have to do it perfectly. Just give it 15 minutes of your undivided attention. When the timer goes off, you are free to stop. See what happens. You might just find that the momentum is enough to carry you forward. And third, tonight, before you go to sleep, try a little experiment. Think of one problem that's been on your mind. Instead of worrying about it, just say to yourself, "It'll be interesting to see what solution comes to me." Give the problem to your night shift mind and let it go. You might be surprised by what you wake up with. That was a deep dive into the Now Habit at Work by Neil Fiore. We've explored the core principles today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a magnificent feast. You can see what's on the table, but you can't taste the food. The real magic happens when you read the book for yourself. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is a map, but the book is the territory. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a light in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new information, it's an experience that can genuinely change your relationship with your work, your stress, and your life. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.